All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, he, she's, theys, thems, ups, downs, lefts, and rights. Everybody with a human mind, body, and soul who's got the awareness to receive this insight that I'd like to offer you today. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Modern Slaves and Mind Games. This official podcast brought to you by the one and only, first name only, Disani. Even better, we added two names to the front end after we cut off the two that were on the back end, and I go by the Dark Wizard Disani, and I hope that you enjoy this special segment that I have for you today. Now, I'm going to say that before every episode because I believe all of these episodes are very special because they're something that I hold deep close to my heart, and I'm realizing in my ability to start releasing them now and truly expressing myself, the fear that I had wasn't necessarily that you guys would judge them, but you guys wouldn't appreciate these ideas and these concepts as much as I do. So I took the initiative to harbor them in my own mind. But they started to decay, they started to rot, they started to hurt my brain and get heavy on myself. And I decided, you know what, let me share this depression with... now, I'm playing. But I decided to say, let me share this insight with you guys and see if you want to participate in these conversations. So it's not just me and the million voices in my head having them terrorizing my daily life. But you guys can help me hopefully reach solutions, and if not reach solutions, at least just engage in this space of chaos and hopefully create just whatever the next step is for those of us who care about ourselves and each other. It's a pleasure, to say the least, honestly, to have you here, because one thing about these podcasts is they're going to be as long as I want them to be. I want to make sure that I get every single bit of analysis, of analogy, of insight, of everything that I can here, because this will be the hub where we truly start to expand to the far, far, far reaches of what this collective consciousness and our community specifically can go out to, especially in a world that is quickly starting to take aim at taking away access to our freedoms like authentic expression and free speech. So I'm not saying that I want to be, a martyr. Definitely don't want to be that. I still have a life to live. As somebody who's come up from a foundation of narcissistic abuse, narcissistic parents, and definitely a narcissistic extended family system, I was not afforded the opportunity to be a child and to explore life in the freedom and the happy-go-lucky nature that I feel like I was deserving of. And I understand how much more difficult it is to create that for an adult, but that is something I believe I deserve if I'm ever going to continue taking steps forward on this path of human life. And hopefully, if I'm not meant to fulfill the expectations of a traditional adult in general American or like human society, at least, the one thing that I want to do is inspire people to choose themselves when given the opportunity and fully going in on that path when called to it. And hopefully that gives them the fulfillment, the excitement, the acceptance, the validation that they were seeking through all of these unhealthy coping mechanisms and toxic relationships and unfulfilling experiences that they've been forced to endure thinking that they were going to get it from. In me understanding and truly accepting my differences and my unique being, I'm realizing that is where I can create a space to inspire the world in the ways that I want to contribute. And one thing on this journey that I'm realizing, not to get too off from the point and from the original podcast, but you really have to be willing to believe in your own swag, for lack of better terms. But honestly, not even for lack of better term, that may be the best term to use for something like that. Believing in your own swag means believing in that when people are rejecting you, when people are laughing at you, when people don't give a shit about what you're presenting and what you bring up to the table, or don't feel like you're a credible source to even be presenting that stuff. You have to be willing to believe in it so hard as if you already know what is facts in a world that has never even seen anything to justify that yet. And allow that relationship that you're developing with yourself, not the relationship that you're developing with the people that you're hoping will accept you and validate you on the other side of that, but with the relationship that you're developing with yourself through your breaking these limitations and barriers in creation, in expression, in existing. Hopefully you find the path that you feel you can fully not only be yourself on, but contribute to, like I was saying earlier, the collective that we all get to exist within as we enjoy these or endure these short human experiences together. Now, before we get into the video, you understand the starving artist has to do that self-promo, because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. If I can't pay my bills, then I can't be able to get you guys this, or forgive me, I won't be able to get you guys this amazing content that I know you appreciate so much. So I'm not trying to hold anything over your head, but if you'd like to support the channel, go ahead and check out Cosmic Nomads Rebel Souls.shop. I apologize, I can't write that for you visually on the screen here, but you can go listen to that one more time. Cosmic Nomads Rebel Souls.shop. Check out some merch. Got some new styles checking out. Probably there will be updated within the week that I upload this podcast episode. So if the website is closed when you're checking this out right now, just go ahead and sign up for that email SMS subscription list, and you will get a notification the second the website opens up with those new styles. And then you can go get you 1, 2, 3, everything. I don't know. Fuck with a starving artist. Fine by me. Or if you'd like to be a part of our Patreon community where you can have early access and a couple of exclusive opportunities, check us out at patreon.com/Cosmic Nomads Rebel Souls. I want to believe that's what it is, and if it's not that, you can go ahead and check the description of this video, which you will see the links to everything that I'm mentioning right there. But if you can't do that, make sure you share this podcast with a friend. You throw a like, maybe you throw a 5-star if you enjoy the episode, and continue to push us through the algorithm that is quickly being dominated, if not already dominated and monopolized by big tech, to make sure that I can continue to make sure that I'm sharing this black consciousness with not just black people, but the world that needs to receive it and can apply this information to the life that they're living, to make this world a place worth existing in for all of us that are involved. Now, with all that being said, I hope you understand how appreciative I am of your presence, how thankful I am that you take the time to listen to these intros and to endure the self-promo. And I'm excited to get into this episode today. So before I even get into the title, I won't even get into the title. All you know is the title. You didn't even get a little synopsis or a summary. I just want to get right into it. So, Snow Bunnies love their Super Bowls, don't they? Let's get into that conversation today. How about it? Now, I'd like to preface this video by giving a direct statement to all the white women around the world who are going to receive this video and hopefully receive this from a perspective of understanding American racism and in the psychological effects, and not only the psychological effects, but the sociological implications of not addressing white supremacist psychosis and racism as a whole, and how that affects the development of the black community. I have zero means, literally for the rest of my life, in participating in any conversations that pit any race against each other. I want all of us to look within ourselves and to see the greatness that we have in our own inner infinity that comes from listening to our dreams, following our heart, following our vision, pursuing what we love and what we care about, and manifesting what we dream about, what we desire. That's what I believe. And I believe that this world is only full of diversity for the sake of the cross collaboration that can happen when you not only build communities around those cultures, but you allow those cultures to collaborate with each other and create more infinitely beyond the foundations that they already have for themselves, while always setting a standard of being able to protect and to care for what is inside the house so everybody can participate in the world that we all are enslaved to, that is outside the house, that we call society. Okay? So, and because I have a lot of international people on this platform and in my community, I know that you guys understand American racism from the perspective of being inside America and being fully at the mercy of American media, like mainstream media especially. We have a ridiculously heightened sense of, or like an overly hyper-vigilant perspective in relation to racism. Mind you, I'm not saying that it's not real, and I'm not saying that it's not as severe as it is, because it definitely is, especially when it comes to black people. But we as black Americans tend to forget that race I'm not saying that it's not as prevalent around the world, because white supremacy and the psychosis of that is prevalent and has been promoted for and propagandized for generations, centuries. What I'm saying is that we may take our gripe. I think I'm using the wrong word. We may take our gripes, our grievances. That's a better word. We may take our grievances with white Americans and the racism that they are ignorant to addressing and protecting us from, and project that onto all white people around the world, stopping us from, one, developing international, globalized relationships with other people who want to offer us opportunity into their culture while also respecting and appreciating ours. But that also stops us from seeing that, hey, we have enmeshed ourselves as Americans in the concept of race. And hey, because your skin color is this, you are now in a automatically allocated community, and these are all your type of people. Just because of the texture of your hair, the color of your skin, the most surface level things, the way that you speak even. But still, and I'm going to keep on reinforcing this, when we cut you down the middle, mind you, genetically there's differences. I understand that, and we can go into that in another time. But we cut you down the middle. You're both human beings, literally in these highly advanced human shells, trying to understand how to navigate your soul through this experience where everybody else also has one, but we don't understand where we came from or where we're going after this. We're kind of just all putting the pieces together as we go every single generation. But we get stuck and really lost when we start to focus on, oh, our differences make us afraid. And in that insecurity, we hate each other and we destroy each other and we prevent each other from accessing self-sufficiency and actualization, rather than what we lack is making us afraid. What we don't have or what we're confused about is making us afraid. And in that fear, we are reacting out of hatred. We're reacting out of something that is negative, stopping us from being able to build the community that we came here to build. Because nobody is superior to anybody in a world where we all humble ourselves enough to support each other collectively to make sure everybody can be taken care of. Enough so to make sure that those who are more abundant than others in times of need can reallocate their abundance to help those in need, because that's how we return the favor to humanity. We either all work on this together while being able to preserve the independent identities that we have, our cultural identities, or we fight each other to the death while leaving the one winner of that globalized war to decide what humanity is for everybody beyond what naturally they were supposed to understand through self-discovery and actualization. So this whole racism shit is, it's not even like annoying for me to talk about. It's just so annoying that we are ignorant enough to not only believe in it, one, but two, to allow it to stop human innovation and allow it to stop the growth that we could pursue and create in this life as human beings, because we're so enslaved to the value we get out of an identity that was created and only validated by a human society that gets their value out of their materialistic or their like social identities more so than their actual like natural human being. Because if we got our identity out of our human being, like the natural human being, then we'd have a lot more to accept and appreciate in this reality than finding reasons to hate our natural being for the sake of being accepted by a society that was created by human beings to only accept fundamentally 1% of those type of human beings. Like we're living under the greatest globalized pyramid scheme of psychosis ever. And the reason why we continue to do it is because we believe the people who have perpetuated or created the leading systems of our world are protected by the most divine if they're able to do so, rather than they're protected by the most dangerous military forces on planet Earth that allow them to perpetuate whatever psychosis they want behind the fear of people being retaliated against with those militias. That's a conversation we're going to have in another episode, though, talking about how like there's like a globalized religious monopoly as a means of stopping indigenous or non-colonial, non-European spiritual practices from stopping the global colonial process that is in full force right now, and they're attempting to transition into the next age of digital currencies and digital realities, which is crypto, Bitcoin, and the metaverse. But I just have to make sure that we have this race part of the conversation so you guys can understand that, hey, I'm speaking to everybody. One, as the black man that I am, I'm speaking to everybody. But fundamentally, I'm speaking to my community as a black people because I understand how there are so few voices in the world, especially celebrity voices, that are willing to speak directly to our people out of a place of actually like love and care, and not just out of the hatred of us for not being accepted by the white man. And then again, I also have these conversations because I don't want, in the world that we're walking into, I don't want white people, because I understand that there are great white people in this world. I've come across them. And I don't want them to feel that because they can't be, because I am targeting their whiteness, which is an aspect of their social identity, that I am targeting their humanity. That's what I'm coming for. What I'm saying is, I need you to deconstruct your whiteness, and to deconstruct it so much to where your awareness is not in that, or is not dependent on the validation you get from your whiteness. It's in your humanity. Connect back to your humanity and see yourself as more than just a white person, or seeing yourself as more than just somebody who can rely on the comfort of the privilege that is your whiteness in a world that leaves you and people like you to be the standard of humanity. And when I say go back to humanity, I'm not just saying to go back to your natural human nature, like going off grid and like not wearing clothes or showering for weeks at a time. I'm saying, what is your ability to empathize with the humanity of people that don't look like you, and people who have histories that go centuries, if not thousands of years, millennia, if not millions of years, deeper and longer into Earth's real history than people that look like you. Let this and every single thing I say in relation to black consciousness, or like race in general, be an opportunity for you guys to discover yourselves beyond the white supremacist identity, because in accepting that, you're forcing yourself to believe that your greatness comes out of the natural subjugation and dehumanization of all people that don't look and live like you. That cannot happen in a world that is actually equitable. You have to gain your value from yourself, your own culture, your own customs, your own beliefs. And then you bring that value that you're cultivating within yourself and your own community to the world stage, and you actually provide value to people beyond yourself instead of selling people dreams. It's going to be very interesting having these conversations about race when we move into a world where it's not even just race that we're competing against, but it's actual like humanity that we're competing against, in the sense that there will be, within the next 5 to 10 years, if we scale efficiently, there will be robots, human robots that can move with the efficiency of PhD level, if not like expert level human beings. In a world where we destroy our Department of Education, in a world where we have deprived people of access to federal aid, we have severed a bunch of government jobs and funding. Like, I want us to really have this race conversation before we integrate artificial intelligence, because I'll make this in another podcast, but this is literally the next wave of African slaves. This is if you have the brains to think, this is the next wave of African slaves. And I'm saying that in the sense that how African slaves affected the Western economy and literally built a new world power that is the United States. That is exactly what's going to happen with artificial intelligence. New world powers, gods, and kings will be built with this. And on top of this, there is the greatest wealth transfer in American history happening. This is why marginalized people are being dehumanized and deprived of ownership opportunities in America over the next 25 years. And Project 2025 is being instated, and the entire government is being folded to the hands of Donald Trump and his cult. This next revolution, this next age, this next era we're walking into is literally over ownership of the world. And we as a people of Earth need to be so deeply tapped into and aware of our humanity so we can be here for and empathize with other real human beings that are going to be at the mercy of and consequenced by this big tech global revolution. And conversations like race, very important to have. Conversations like gender, specifically speaking about misogyny and patriarchy, very important to have. And especially speaking about homophobia and transphobia are very important to have. So I know it sounds like I'm saying a lot and I'm touching a bunch of different conversations and concepts here. But remember, I'm speaking for the hope that I can give significance to our humanity beyond our social identity. And if we can give validation to that, if we can give significance to that and care for that and realize that is what connects us as a collective consciousness, that awareness, that online that we are all connected to, we may have a chance to be something more and to create a world beyond what our destiny is literally cutting us out to manifest. But it starts with all of us being able to participate, not just in the world, but in these conversations, but in this consciousness. Because that's the only world that will exist. The one where everybody is involved, because that is the only world that we have. So, white people, white women specifically, because this is a conversation that affects you. Me and my people in my community, we love you. But we are not going to express our love to you at the mercy of the well-being of black women. We are not going to love you while lying to you about who we are. We are not going to love you at the mercy of being present for our community, for our children, for those who are affected by our culture. We are only going to love you coming from a foundation of genuine love for ourselves, and from that desiring to love you and your humanity, especially deeper than just your whiteness. Because there's something I want to tell you here, white women. Just because that black man loves you and he's showing you more love than he's showing black women, are you sure, and maybe you're okay with this, so if you are okay with this, then that's cool. Are you sure that he genuinely loves you to love you and to be there to love and expand into all the versions of you that you become beyond just a partner? Or is this somebody who's trying to escape the inevitable animosity and torment and rejection and abuse, genuinely, that comes with courting and loving outwardly a black woman? And are you his salvation from that? Are you his protection from the reality that is seeing what it is like to not only express or desire, but engage in healthy black love? And the responsibility that comes with protecting it and reinforcing it and standing on top of it in a world that does not want to see it thrive, much less survive. So the white women that I'll probably get canceled by white women if the right ones see this video or listen to this podcast. I'll probably get canceled. But for those who have the patience to understand the perspective that I'm coming from, I thank you and I appreciate you. And for those white women who do see beyond race and do seek to love people of other races than their own, I appreciate you. But I ask you, I beg you, I plead with you to humble yourself into understanding the culture, to appreciating the culture, and to appreciating the people that you desire to be in connection, in love with. And you truly, truly serve those people, bro, with everything that you can, with the privilege that you have access to, and with the unique person that you are. Give yourself a chance to be a part of a community. Give yourself a chance to be somebody who's receiving from there instead of constantly trying to dominate everything. We as a world people of non-white people want to be in community with you. We want to love you, but we're tired of being stepped on by you, having our cultures bastardized by you, and being disrespected by you. Now, mind you, this is only going to go through so many people's ears and down deep enough into their hearts. And for those which it does, we appreciate you more than life. For everybody else, yeah, it's really fuck you, bro. Now, this is the perfect way to lead ourselves into the podcast. You may be seeing the title, Snow Bunnies Love Their Super Bowls. And I'm not going to say that they're the only ones who do, but let's be honest. How many of my brother's wives are... I don't even need to continue going. And again, I'm not saying this to disparage any of the white women, any of the white sisters that we have loving on our black brothers. But this is an opportunity to open up your mind in conversations that you will probably never have in your community, to hopefully be a part of a culture, of a consciousness that's more impactful than just serving your own self, or really your own kind, because we'll get into that later in the video. How about it? Hope you got your popcorn ready. Hope you got your girlfriend ready. And if that's not what you're on, hopefully you're ready to get into a great episode. Regardless, I got love for you, so you don't got to worry about that bullshit. Let's get rocking. Now, I had to drop this episode right around the Super Bowl because this is a conversation that's always had right around the Super Bowl or right around the draft, specifically for the NFL or NBA draft also. But it's a conversation that lasts 48 hours, 72 at max, and then we end up going back to our regular lives because it is just such a natural aspect of it now. But why are all these dark-skinned brothers, darker than night-skinned brothers, with these pale, fair-skinned women? How does that happen to be the case? And mind you, that is not the only conversation that is happening regarding race. How come, especially in these high contact, at least some of the most entertaining sports, how come the executives of the teams are fair-skinned white boys, and seemingly everyone that the players are married to happen to be their daughters or their daughter adjacent? And this question, it doesn't come from a position of hating white people. Like, this is why I keep on having to say that, and I'm going to have to keep on having to say that because you guys be ignorant like a motherfucker. But it's coming from a position of, how were you raised around all that black people, all that blackness, all that black stuff, blackity black, blackity black, and you don't even want to be, like, you don't even want to, with your own ability to create a community, whether it's a community of peers or a community of actual family, like blood-related family, you're choosing against us, or at least people who don't choose us outwardly, if they had the choice. So how could that be? But you do the Black History Month and the Black Lives Matter and the representative politics and all that, yada yada, whatever it takes, your charity fund and your Thanksgiving ordeal. But where the real money is, where the real commitment is, your loyalty is beyond your people. It's in the hands of the people who have dehumanized our people so much they thought that they owned us. And that leads me back to the conversation of believing that not only the NCAA, but all these major executive capitalist-owned sporting organizations are just plantations. American plantations to gamble on, and because the slaves of those plantations are being compensated ridiculously more than those slaves of other plantations, whether it's teachers or other essential workers, we believe that the abuse that they endure and the predatory nature of their experience is not something to be valued and is not something to have conversation about until we get to a point where the athlete's getting exploited and they have a bad contract, or they have a baby mama deal, or they have a bad, they're getting half of their money taken from them in a marriage. And we're saying, oh my goodness, like, look at all these people trying to take advantage of this young black man. How come nobody's there for him? Nobody's there for him. Nobody's there. But in this episode, I'd like to, at least, if I can't give a chronological timeline or description as to how these young black men are raised in this culture of self-rejection and desiring external salvation, at least pinpoint the important aspects of this conversation to understand why sports, and not just sports, but entertainment maybe as a whole, has been an opportunity to reproduce a white population with black genes. And again, this may make me sound crazy, may make me sound like one of those weirdo anthropologists. I don't even know how to say it. One of those weirdo anthropologists. But forgive me as we get into this conversation, because it's more important than you could ever imagine. So thank you for being here again, because I know I just spent 25 minutes bullshitting. But you know how I love giving background information before we get into the nitty gritty of this stuff. So why don't we just allow ourselves to start with what's obvious about this situation here? I apologize for everybody who sat here thinking that I was going to say that, well, white women are just more beautiful than black women. I'm sorry, I'm not one of them Negroes. But what I will say, because I guess I'll go into a side note here, which we usually get into if you're not familiar with my channel. I am a man of great taste. I believe that there are beautiful women in every culture and community. But a lot of that beauty is being hindered by, one, a standard of beauty that is external, and it is created and manufactured by a specific group of people to make people hate their natural appearance and their natural beauty for the sake of being accepted by a standard that is not them. So to me, the conversation about preferences, which we'll get into later in this podcast, or just really desirability politics, disappoints me, because it's usually centered around, hey, the white woman, especially the damsel in distress white woman, is the most desirable, and everybody else in their unique natural beauty needs to humble themselves into either looking like a shell of that or being accepted by that, which is interesting because they don't accept you, because if you are more desirable than the white woman in white supremacist culture, if you are a marginalized woman who is deemed more desirable by white women, by them, or by white men, you are then subject to punishment because you are not allowed to feel or to be actively more desirable than the person who's supposed to feel as if they are the most desired species on planet Earth. So, as weird as it is, the most obvious aspect of this conversation is just going to be simply addressing, globally, we've created this culture of, and maybe it's not globally, could just be my American exceptionalism speaking, but in our country, we've created this standard of the white woman is damn near perfect, and everybody else is fighting for acceptance among that illusion of perfection. While, again, like I was saying earlier, abandoning their natural appearance and the natural aspects of their culture and their own beauty that they have, whether it's their curviness, or it's their skin tone, or it's the way their teeth are, the way their nose is shaped, or the way their hair is. You're forced to abandon all the unique aspects that allow you to find beauty in a place where people can't take it from you or can't tell you that it is not beautiful, and then you gamble yourself to somebody who has decided they are the holder of beauty to then hope they can give it to you. But this person obviously knows that they don't have to give it to you. They can just exploit you if you're seeking for validation in that. because they'll just tell you what you want to hear until you believe everything that they say. And then they just tell you what they need to say to get you to do what they want you to do. And now you're in a toxic relationship. Now you're in an exploitative, predatory partnership. Now you are selling your self-acceptance and your own ability to validate yourself to an other person that you deem more worthy of having the power to do so. That somehow is somebody other than yourself. But I think that just leaving this conversation at, well, white supremacy says that white women are the most desirable and we're just going to close the book there. I think that's too surface level. There's way too many other angles that we could take to have this conversation with. And if you can see the length of this podcast, I guarantee you it's going to be more than 2 hours, if not an hour and a half, because I kind of procrastinate when I start these. So the second fairly obvious, and maybe not to people who aren't experiencing the trauma of being black in America or just haven't been in an actual black community before. The second fairly obvious aspect is black communities that are suffering underneath the oppression and the naturally, not even naturally, the manufactured suffering that is imposed amongst our people or upon our people in America for existing. That naturally divides and destroys our community. And all that is the initial domino that needs to get hit to create lasting damaging effects in our community that naturally will not go addressed, because the initial manufacturing of the suffering is never validated, because then we'd have to hold the person who's doing that accountable rather than blaming black people for all of the issues that are created amongst our community. So because we're not going to hold the person who's inciting this stuff or manufacturing this level of community destruction and cultural damnation, because we're not going to hold them accountable, we as a black people are going to face increasingly more trauma within our communities. And because of that, we are going to take that real trauma and align it with the natural stereotypes that we are having forced onto us through our society that, again, double down in making black people hate themselves in the same way that they double up in making white people feel more superior because they can have those stereotypes immediately reinforced. We as a black people start to internalize, and in that internalizing, validate white supremacy that has been taught to us, because it aligns with the trauma that we are going through and facing at the hands of other black people. But we refuse to have the insight or the cultural awareness to understand how we are being deprived of resources. Our conscious leaders were all turned into martyrs and literally killed. Since any of them ever come up, they all get killed. Anytime we've tried to create our own independent economic system in this country, it has been blown up. It's been destroyed. Anytime we've tried to create independent communities and consciousness, there's been some kind of racist cult group that's come up and been supported by the United States government, and if not, one of the three-letter agencies, to incite destruction. And if not that, we have housing projects that are made to literally create war zones in our country. To abuse, or really not even abuse, to train our police force on. So we're sitting here setting up just trauma and pain and suffering, and then also depriving people of resources and opportunities, or accommodations at least, to escape that or protect themselves from that. And then we're confused as to why they continue to retaliate against each other, as if there's anything else to do or anything to do beyond that. And then we blame these people for how they act in scenarios that they are set up to act in, as if we shouldn't be praising them for acting exactly how we've set them up to act. And the more trauma you endure in a country, or at least in like America, that the sensationalist media is constantly terrorizing black people. And if not terrorizing black people, then sharing stereotypes and buzzwords about black people. And beyond that, we don't teach any black history or any critical race theory in our schools. So people don't have a cultural awareness or appreciation for black people and how to respect us. And then more times than not, when people can't appreciate us and black people, for the gifts that we have in our natural being, we are disrespected because people feel insecure around us, not being able to validate us as being more than them in a world where they are supposed to be able to reinforce that we are always going to be inferior to them. So we as a black people are sitting here believing that we are less than the master in the way that the master teaches us to believe, because we refuse to accept the fact that we have been set up to fail. And once we start seeing that, which they don't want us to do, because that's what comes with stopping the violence in the streets. That's what comes with stopping the internet hatred. That's what stops with coming the gender wars and all that stuff. It comes with truly, truly, truly seeing who the Wizard of Oz is and how the Wizard of Oz has been playing games on everybody to divide everybody so far apart from themselves to all be at the mercy of gaining their salvation from the wizard, rather than us seeing that the wizard is a liar and the only thing that we can get salvation from is ourselves. And the only reason why we do that is because we can share that beyond ourselves to the people that exist around us as well. But you can't control and exploit and abuse and indoctrinate those people, especially at mass. You have to just surrender to the reality that they create. So how does all of that play a role into snow bunnies? Because I didn't say snow bunnies for the past 12 minutes. Well, because of all that community destruction, I'm not blaming that necessarily for the reason why we have fatherless homes or there's single parent homes. But one thing about that, especially about single parent homes in the black community, is that type of trauma that gets endured from there, it doesn't punish, again, the society that we live in, stopping every child from having access to community to make sure that they can be raised by a community, if not by the parents that birthed them. We punish the parents for not being able to stay together, even if their relationship was unhealthy, for the sake of raising a child, which they could probably traumatize even more if they tried to force a relationship rather than separating. But that's a conversation for another day. That single parenthood, especially in the black community conversation, that directly punishes the black woman, because we not only project these negative, dehumanizing stereotypes onto the black woman, who already does so much for the black community and black people, but a lot of black men or black boys raised in those situations are either forced to basically become the spouse, like in some emotional incest type scenario, become the father or the leader of the house, or become the father to their siblings, or become basically, and it sounds really gross, but like a husband to their mom, because there's no man in the house, or literally just be pimped out around all the men that their mom may be seeing or may desire to be in a relationship with. It's that trauma, especially when not allowed to be addressed, because I think if we address that as a black community, a lot more dads would either wear jimmies when they're having sex, or they would stay in their kids' lives because they know how painful this type of shit is. But that type of trauma also leads black men away from black women, in the sense that they seen how abused they were, or how I'm trying to find a good word to use here, where they seen how hostile the environment was when they lived in relationship with a black woman who was not supported, who was not cared for, who was not loved, and they couldn't do anything about it. They could only dream about how much money they needed to make to save their family. They could only dream about salvation. Most of black men get tired of that, and they look at the white woman as convenience, as an opportunity beyond that constant struggle, the constant bickering, the constant back and forth, and the constant terrorism that is, again, like manufactured by our social culture, and then put us in, or force us in, to sabotage ourselves and then blame each other and further divide our community. So, and again, it's difficult because it's so many of these aspects of just this victim blaming culture, this victim blame, and continue we're going to blame every single victim until we realize that, like, Who's the person even pointing the fucking finger in the first place? Again, conversation for another day, because I don't even think I have an answer for you for that for you. But the reason why it's so important to speak on a situation like the trauma that maybe these young black men may face, and even if it's not that specifically, it could be because those young black men are also chasing the validation of their white peers, or if not their white peers, other black boys who are enduring the trauma that I'm speaking about. And in doing that, very important topic we're going to discuss here, they go out of their way to other young black girls and they purposefully abuse and traumatize these girls as a means of retaliating against their mother. Or they do so because the disrespect level that they've developed for the black woman from their own household is now being accentuated and expressed into the rest of the world because that was the standard they created. I hate my mother, so I'm going to hate all women that remind me of my mother or remind me of the responsibility that I have to take if I'm going to be in a relationship with a black woman, especially knowing that as a black man, I'm going to have to take a lot more responsibility because I'm going to have to protect the well-being of this black woman at the hands of the eyes and the shame of everybody, even people in my own community, if I desire to have the healthy relationship that I know I can be a part of. And that's too overwhelming for a lot of people, bro. A lot of people think that love is just some happy-go-lucky shit that you can just, we always have a good time and we have great sex and we go on vacations and we're going to get married and have 10 kids and then have a rent. Like, that's not love, bro. But it's interesting to even have that conversation, to even break off into that, because selling the illusion that love is almost like salvation from loneliness, or if that's the world that we live in, it's the world we've created, it makes it even more difficult for black men and black women to be in a relationship with each other, because the person who can best afford the black man that level of peace, and mind you, I'm not saying this is a fact, I'm saying this as like circumstantially, the person who can best provide the black man that level of peace in the society that we live in underneath these white supremacist standards happens to be the white woman more times than not because they're more capable, but because them usually not living under the microscope of racial oppression and abuse, understanding that they live under the microscope of being a woman, them not living under that racial microscope allows them a different level of peace. Or at least it removes the blanket of hypervigilance, allowing them to be appearing more feminine, but it's not necessarily more feminine. They're just more soft because they don't have the heightened anxiety and hypervigilance that it takes to be a black woman in this world, because many black women know for a fact they go home and there's nobody to protect them. They go out into the world, there's nobody to protect them. They go into their own soul and they barely even have enough energy to be there for themselves. So think about how overwhelming that is, and how, if you want to look at it like this, it makes people masculine. Yeah, being isolated and traumatized and overwhelmed with stress, yeah, that's going to make anybody masculine. Especially when you're not allowed or afforded the opportunity to love yourself, when you're not afforded the opportunity to be supported and to take a step off of your 10 toes because you're constantly dragging them and walking on them all day, doing so much for other people who don't reciprocate or compensate back to you. Yeah, that's going to make anybody more masculine. But in a world where you know you are the most desirable, and not only the most desirable, but if a crime or something that happens to you, again, I'm not saying this to abandon the Me Too movement. I'm saying this is specifically like a white privilege thing. But when something happens to you, especially when you as a white woman are dating a marginalized, especially a black man, your allegations are seen as fact at the hand of or going against the real experience claimed by black men. And that is a different kind of privilege that I think a lot of white people don't want to express or don't want to give, And that's a lot of the reason why a lot of people don't want to receive my claim when I say underneath white supremacy, white women have more power than black men. But I'd ask you to get in the comments and to see where I'm wrong about that. Because not only can white women present this illusion of salvation away from the black woman, but in those relationships, they are almost have predatory levels of power, because where physically the strength of the black man may be overpowering, or the dominance of the black man may be overpowering, in a legal system, in a legal perspective, the black man is an animal. And we as a society need to protect our damsel at the hand of that animal. And that is power like that black people as a whole will never, ever, ever be able to access underneath this system, because we barely even have access to our own humanity. Now, one of the major issues, if not, she's one of them, because there's a handful of other ones. But one of the many issues that I have with social media is that as a means of further engaging or getting users addicted to the platforms, you have to have just stupid gender blowing up conversations. Like, not even that. Like, you have to have or incite gender wars or these opposing identity culture wars for the sake of making people feel like they're participating in conscious thought, but really just forcing them to just create a bunch of meaningless slop that does nothing but make some people feel like they're experts because they can't be proven wrong, and a bunch of other people to be afraid of expressing themselves and sharing their truth because they're afraid of being wrong. And then we have these conversations about, oh, well, black men this, black women this, black men this, black women this, and I'll give credibility to what is real that is being said in there. But when I can sit here and see that you're saying things out of your own trauma and your own inability to heal that, and you're projecting your pain for the sake of validating it externally, not giving us any opportunity to build community on the other side of, I don't know, your healing, or I don't know, on the other side of actually building a community. It's these algorithms, and that's one of the reasons I'm glad TikTok's kind of getting blown up here. And if not TikTok getting blown up, then we as a society are going to have to move into a world where the only people that will be creating content will genuinely be the people who care about creating content. But again, forgive me, that's another conversation for another time. We as black men and black women are constantly put in situations to hate each other, to traumatize each other, to be at the mercy of other people's or of each other's worst emotions and energies and intentions, even without even thinking that it could be manufactured by powers beyond our own control, for the sake of not allowing us to truly see and actualize how much we genuinely love each other when we aren't in these situations of lack, of hatred, of illness, of ignorance. And again, the reason why I have to keep on triangulating you white women into here is because I want you to keep on knowing that just because the black man loves the black woman does not mean that you are less than, or does not mean that now we are going to all collectively hate you or exclude you. We just need the black man to know where he came from. Because when the black man knows where he came from, when the black man knows how important it is to give grace, to give respect, to give love and care for where he came from and the home that he is from and his own people, then from that he can give the best version of himself to anybody beyond himself and his people. Knowing that if he, that black man, does not do right by you and yours, you can send him back to a place that's going to not only hold him accountable, but make sure that he is upheld to a standard of respect and dignity. But it's a whole hell of a lot different when punishing the black man only leads to him being consequenced by a criminal justice system that, again, does not see us as human beings and locks us into a correctional system, the prison industrial complex, that will not correct us or rehabilitate us in a way to actually make us better human beings, but will only reinforce the slaves that this society wants us to know that we are. Not even believe, to know that we are. And that's a scary fucking thing. When we as black men have our foundation rooted in respecting and appreciating the fullness of our community and extending that love and that care and that passion to the rest of the world, then we don't go about sacrificing our people or our culture for the sake of being saved or accepted by a people beyond ourselves because we believe that they are more human than us. And there's another conversation I want to touch on here, which is probably going to be a part of the obvious section, but it really, really broke my heart. Like, I couldn't even finish watching the video because of it. This was on somebody was making a documentary, like a YouTube documentary on a Kai Cenat stream, and they're basically talking about how, like, the things that Kai had to do to build himself up and, like, gain subscribers and attention and controversy and whatnot. And one of them, there's a black woman, beautiful black woman that was invited onto the stream. And there's a bunch of, like, other famous black dude streamers standing there. And Drewski is standing there trying to see, like, I guess, like, what, I don't know if they're trying to see what race the girl is or what type of girl it is. And he has a blindfold on. And he's massaging this girl's hands. But as he's doing it, he's saying, like, oh, like, what job do you do? Like, these are worker hands. Obviously, like, inciting anti-blackness. And it's just like, as a black man in a community that actually cares for the well-being of not just my black people, but black women, like, the thing that hurt me the most about that situation was the fact that he's doing that not only for the validation of his peers, but all those peers are doing that for the validation of the people who will pay them. And the people who will pay them to abuse white women and abuse black women and disrespect black women in such a way are white men. So the money looks good when you're getting these $10,000, $100,000, $1 million deals. The validation feels good when it's the girls that you used to not be able to get, or it's the girls that you really desired and you didn't know how to talk to, when they're saying that you're funny and you're cute and you're this and you're that. It's all fun and games until you realize that you fought so hard to get into a community that never liked you and offered you sacrifice of your community to access theirs. And then when they kick you out, you turn around and realize you never had a community to go back to because you spent your whole career selling it. And the same people that you're going to be turning back to, begging for salvation, begging for appreciation, these black women that you disrespected for validation of other people, you're going to be pissed off. You're going to be tripping that nobody wants to come around and help you. So that's why, like, I don't even care that, especially on TikTok, I was getting this response a lot. Like, not too much, as much as some people I've seen. But people would say, oh, you're pandering to women. You're simp, you panderer. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I genuinely desire to live in a world where women feel like they can be the fullness of themselves without fear of retaliation to that authenticity or to that expression. Because I understand that is a pivotal pillar and foundation in a conscious community where the human beings in my community are contributing from the fullness of their depth, not from what I expect them to be from the little that I know them to be, not even with my own discovery into them. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much discovery I can do that comes from the external. I have to allow them the freedom of digging into the fullness of who they are and taking the time, having the awareness to share that with this collective, with this environment that I'm giving them the opportunity to do so in. So I don't give a fuck if you guys think that I'm weird or I'm crazy for supporting black women as much as I do, or supporting the black LGBTQ, or supporting black disabled people, or supporting marginalized people within our community that aren't appreciated by capitalism or patriarchy or white supremacy. But that's the backbone of our community, and I hope you guys truly understand that. Maybe Christianity is a little bit different for everybody. But in white supremacist Christianity, where the woman was created from the rib of the man, the only place that I can meet halfway, to call it that, is that our Eve in the black community is our backbone. She is not our rib. She is our backbone. And the second we decide that we can truly accept and appreciate that, and truly create not only the space to allow the fullness of the woman, but real influential executive pivotal roles for the black woman to be responsible of our community, then we're going to start seeing ourselves grow and expand in ways that we never, ever, ever had the opportunity to even imagine. But we keep on taking opportunities to jab at our sisters. We take opportunities to shit on our sisters. We take opportunities to neglect our sisters, to abandon our sisters. We prioritize our sisters when we think somebody is deserving of abuse, but we forget about them when we think that somebody is deserving of love. And that's something that, if you're a part of my community, no matter who you are, whatever color, skin color you are, whatever you got in between your legs, whatever you got in your brain, that's a foundation that you're going to have to rest on with us, or you're going to have to be willing to die on with us, because we're quickly moving into a Handmaid's Tale society, and I refuse to see my black women wearing them white dresses for them white men in this world. I apologize for even saying it like that, but that's really how it got to be. And mind you, another little side point that I want to add is that in thinking that the feminine is exclusively a damsel in distress, basically a child woman who needs to be owned and bought by a father-like figure that will eventually be called her husband, as if that doesn't sound predatory enough, you neglect the full capacity of the feminine. You neglect the fullness of what not only the women can do, but what the women collectively can do with each other, not barred down by the responsibility of marriage, the responsibility of parenthood, the responsibility of second-class citizenship, when they know, we know, and the rest of the waking world that has more than 2 brain cells in their brains knows women have the capability to access. And you, if you consider yourself to be an intellectual person, you have to understand that women, independent from not only patriarchy, but from society, when working in unison, metaphysical people understand this, there is a different kind of energy that can be cultivated in said communities. And in those communities, when given the opportunity to fully expand, to fully be the fullness of what they are, to tap into the depths of who they can be, there is nothing that can't be manifest. There is nothing that can't be solved. There's nothing that can't be built. Think about how destructive that is to a society that is built, not even built by, that is manifested by a cult, a frat cult of white boys who can't take being wrong or losing, like to go to war about everything, and have to convince the entire world to siphon the energy of the dehumanized black woman so that black woman does not get to make decisions on the back end of her own naturally derived power. Imagine how wrong that would be for a America that was attempting to make itself great again by dehumanizing everybody it loaned human rights to 60 years ago. Just fucking imagine. Now that we've kind of covered the fairly obvious reasons as to why you're seeing all these black men with anti-black women, non-black women. I'm playing with y'all. It's not the same thing. I know. Let's get into the maybe not so obvious reasons. Now, we're going to start with a pretty obvious reason because I know you guys love to hear this, but I don't believe that this is necessarily an issue as much as the other two may be. But we're going to discuss it anyway because I'm here anyway and I'm staring at it, so I guess we might as well just discuss it, right? So, the gold digger method, that is fairly obvious, and hopefully any aspiring athlete or wealthy person can see that to this point. Hey, if you aren't keen and discerning of your relationships and, intentional with those relationships as well, before you amass a lot of wealth, you are going to be thrust into an environment to receive validation and appreciation and even a handful of gifts, wink, wink, that you never thought were possible for somebody like you. If you don't understand how to control yourself, if you don't understand the value that you naturally provide, forgive me, if you don't understand the value that you naturally provide in this world, you will be exploited. You will be manipulated. You'll be taken advantage of. And it will be taking advantage out of you out of love, or at least projected onto you as if it is love or just a way that love is displayed. Owning you, being overprotective of you, literally enslaving you to their ownership. And as somebody who has value within you, especially somebody who brings value to the world at mass through whether it's athletics or it's entertainment or film, music, you got to realize that the relationships that you have need to best support you in being able to share your gift with the world. They're not just supporting you so they can end up feeding themselves exclusively at the mercy of all the things that you're supposed to do in this life. Because at the end of the day, that's going to also be detrimental to your health and your well-being, which is the only reason why you have access to this success and abundance in the first place. So why not craft a lifestyle that's in alignment with supporting you, making sure that you have unfiltered access to your goal or your abundance, and you can keep feeding the people that support you? Because obviously that's what a natural human being wants to do. People gave to me, people supported me and sacrificed their life to make sure that I had opportunity. And with my success in my opportunity, I want to give back to remind them that I'm appreciative of them doing what they did for me when I couldn't do that for myself. Now, the reason why I say that that's more of like an obvious one is because we live in social media age, and it's happening to so many people. You should just see the signs and then be able to walk away from that. But again, I don't blame a lot of these like super wealthy or famous people who get into situations like this. Because again, it's not my money, it's not my situation, it's not my relationship, so it's really not my problem at the end of the day. But speaking from black man to black man, it is my community, so it's my conversation to be had. But it honestly goes into play how important it is to have a black community beyond black individual people, especially successful black individual people, because we as a community can vet the people and the relationships that our successful people have and protect them from the exploitation of their success or the exploitation of their life to somebody who is very, very selfish and obviously doesn't care about them like we care about them. But as we have more conversations about developing community, especially beyond this cult of identity community that we have in the United States, we'll be able to hopefully protect a lot more of our brothers from those types of scenarios. That leads us into two other not so obvious models that I want to express or at least share with you guys. Hopefully they don't get me canceled, but if they do, these are all alleged and I'm a comedian and I'm lying. And if they don't, keep listening to the episode. First one, I think that these white women are placed onto these black men as handlers. Now, we already spent a handful of time discussing how the trauma within the black community is almost like a war zone to allow the white woman to feel like an oasis away from his PTSD and suffering. Now, when you do something like that, especially as an executive white person, and you know that your daughter only has an opportunity to marry an average Joe, think about this. If she can endure a relationship with a NFL player, an NBA player, somebody who's getting max contracts, that is one, either a ridiculously socially leveraging opportunity for you and your family if you don't already have access to that type of lifestyle, at the mercy of his ability to invest that money into his own community. But if you already are wealthy and now he is a newly wealthy person who wants access into your lifestyle, and or at least not even access, but maintenance in that kind of lifestyle, and the only way to get that is through you, but the only way for you to get access or to maintain access to wealth is through him, then you can strap yourself onto this dude. And whether it's by just marriage and the prenup or kids, you can find a way to get your own income off of this nigga. Mind you, that's not the only opportunity that we're talking about. This is not, we can't just stare at the lady and be like, oh, lady, it's your fault for stealing this guy's money, gold digger, Like, it's not just that. This is also a means of wealthy white families being able to retain their wealth in the family, but also utilize an active participant in society in a high-risk sport, utilize their wealth to also invest into these people's family and community that is not black. And then more times than not, anytime you do want to create some kind of black-centered or focused initiative or program, you're gaslit and you're manipulated and you're meant to feel like shit because, oh, that's racist. Why don't you do it for all people? Why don't you do it for local people? Why don't you do it for your hometown? Like, why do you always got to bring race into everything? And that's how that starts, man. It's just, and again, I'm not saying that it's not real. Love between black and white people is not real. But what I want you to really, really understand is that where is the investment into our community? How few black millionaires have you seen, especially entertainment millionaires, or if they all happen to be entertainment millionaires? And how come all of their money is going back into the community of people that did not care about us, or do not care about us, or disrespect us actively? And where's all the promotion for the healthy black couples and relationships and communities that are being invested in with this newfound new age wealth? Why is it constantly going back? And even if it is, bro, even if it is going into our community, it's going into gang violence. It's going into things that have nothing, that can't grow generationally to positively impact our culture and our community. It's just blow all your money on, again, businesses that we don't even own, or invest it all into other people's children and communities. And still, it's use black people to create wealth, not only for themselves, but for organizations, for executives, for investors, for communities. Use black people to create all the wealth. And then if you can't just justify exploiting them and ripping them off or just like kicking them out of the community, then give them enough change, but then also around that change, create this underlying expectation of needing to have a top of the line woman, and then subconsciously tell them, hey, you have to have a white woman who's like skinny and does this, and then you're going to be accepted by us because that's how we live around here. We don't want any of that black shit around here. We don't want any of that black woman. We don't want any of that, like, I don't even know what they be saying because I don't even hang around them type of niggas. But every wealthy white person, especially wealthy racist that you know, understands this formula. If you let a black man get successful, become a millionaire off of sport, and you let them marry a black woman and have a healthy family off that, one, that black woman can see, hey, you know what? You've made all the money you need to off this sport. How about we invest in our kids to be doctors and scientists and engineers? Whoa, like, no. We can't have that. We got to have 6 generations of football players getting CTE. We got to have 10 generations of NBA players, but not even a single basketball court in the home city of that family. Like, the second it benefits Black people, in a way that cannot be controlled and beyond controlled, exploited, and wealth extracted from that control, it's demonic. Or it's, in recent terms, anti-Semitic. Okay, that was dark humor. I apologize. That was not real. But one thing that I've learned, especially as like I'm an entrepreneur, so I study a little bit of finance myself. Something that I've learned in American business and American social politics is that the white man is never going to invest his money into anything that he does not get the leading return on investment in. And if you think that he's going to outwardly invest in black people to pick themselves up from the poverty that our society forced us into as a means of creating ladders out of it, and not only ladders out, but creating foundations to thrive beyond it, I'm telling you, you are out of your fucking mind. And that perfectly leads us into the final not so obvious aspect of what could be being done here as a means of utilizing the illusion of opportunity as a means of further, in the long term, destroying the black community, is you get to create these sports. And the reason why I'm even adding this perspective is because I just spent like the last 2 weeks watching all these episodes of this new idiotic sport called power slap. Like, I thought football was like pushing it. Oh, hell no. I thought kickboxing was pushing it. Hell no. I thought bare knuckle boxing was really pushing it. Hell no. This is some other form of absolute degeneracy. But it's so early in the inception of this. I don't even think it may still be going, actually. I've just been seeing reruns on YouTube because I don't have any subscription services because I'm poor. But the highlights that I've been watching, I'm realizing that when you start a sport, because we've been fortunate enough to be in the back end development era of a lot of major sports franchises and industries, but we haven't really seen the inception of new sports. Now, with all that being said, as we get to see the types of people that are being included, and mind you, this is not me saying anything disparaging or like negative about the kind of people or their upbringing or their backgrounds on that Power Slap show. But if you take the time to do due diligence on any of these people that are on that show and to see the level of like desperation they have and the really fucked up circumstances they're coming from, looking for an opportunity to escape from, you start to realize that's how all these major sports work and organizations work. You're going to have the most desperate people who lack opportunity, lack support, lack anything but ambition and a dream. And you're going to take advantage of that ambition and a dream all the way to make as much money as you can off of them until you can kick them off so you can stop paying them, but you validated the sport enough to get everybody to want to play it, enough to keep justifying TV deals around that sport every single year. And if not TV deals, just seasonal attendance every single year. So let me just break that down for you. Us as white dudes are going to create a sport called football, and then we're going to realize that we can only max out its popularity so much because the game just isn't what it could be. But let's include some of those people that we don't think are human beings, those Negroes. And over time, boom, as we're including more than just Negroes, but Negroes specifically, this sport blows up. Just like rock music, just like literally anything that you add black people to, especially you allow them to get creative in. So while we're still learning the rules of this game, while we're still understanding that damn near every single person in the NFL, if they've taken more than 3 real hits, you're probably going to have CTE at some point in your life. They're just hoping that you pass away before it ends up developing. You can work out the kinks of this game while people don't care, while the government is still trying to get your game banned, while this is still one of the most unhealthy activities for any adult with more than a brain cell can engage themselves into consciously. Now, all of those brave souls in the beginning will get sacrificed Whether it's by bad rules, it's by not enough regulations, no corrections, no accommodations, no support, lack of understanding, lack of awareness, lack of experience. They are all the collateral damage to create the game into something that can be accepted as an essential or a natural part of our society. The reason why I have to mention that specifically is because it's not even necessarily a race thing anymore that's happening. Now, a lot of these sports where they had sold the illusion of opportunity or a step into the upper echelon or higher society with success, these marginalized people, disadvantaged people, took that opportunity. Maybe they made something out of themselves. 99% of people didn't. And they've created the sport to be something that the whole world wants to have access to. But now, because the whole sport wants to have access to it, and now everybody wants to have the right gear, the right setup, the right training, the right this, and there's a whole economy, globalized economy around this. Now, we're not giving the sport or selling the sport off to the person who is literally the most ambitious, the most desperate, the most desiring to win, to succeed, to be something, to make something of themselves in spite of everything that they've gone through. It's simply who can pay the person who's offering the opportunity the most amount of money to access it. And whoever does gets the opportunity. Or, if not that, who is going to take my money and make a return on my investment, which makes sense naturally as a business perspective, but who is going to take my money and make my money turn into more money in exchange for a couple of the monies that I make? And again, we as black people, I'm starting to see, and I don't know, maybe not, because I still think athletics-wise, we are some of the greatest beings on planet Earth. But you're slowly going to start to see that this sport that was built by gutter boys, built by ghetto kids, built by kids who didn't have shit, bro, people who didn't have nothing but a dream. Those kids are now being excluded or even ostracized from the same sport that their ancestors built. And now it's only rich kids that can play the sport. It's only people that can afford to show up on the weekends to the games and afford to show up to the after school practice, afford to show up to the travel tournaments and whatnot, which is all so much more aesthetic than the actual value that's created through these games, which is the cultural engagement through competition, through showing up, through collaborating with your team, through conquering a mission. So all of that ties into say, as black men, I understand, like, I'm not trying to say like stop playing football or like stop playing any like pro sports, but I really, really, really want you guys, especially as black men, to understand how you don't have any friends in the industry. None of them people are your friends. None of them people like you. Okay? You are a tool to be used to make money. And the second you stop making money, I'm telling you, those people that you thought you were your friends are quickly going to disappear and find some new ones right in front of your face. And the sooner you accept that, and the sooner you realize there's only certain people that are going to be there for you when the whole world turns on you, and then people look a whole hell of a lot like you, more so than the people who are selling you this illusion of acceptance and validation, then you'll know who you're doing this for, in spite of all the acceptance that you do get on this journey. But if we can see that we are being used for somebody else's gratification, somebody else's success, somebody else's access to opportunity, then we can finally ask the question, why are we not doing this for ourselves, for our own people, for people who look like us, who live like us, who actually have the opportunity to love us, coming from a place of self-love because they are us, rather than people who only can sell us this illusion of love through dreams, because they know that their ability to love us through their whiteness grants us a different level of privilege than we have just being black people. This is, and it happens in the music industry too. Like we can go any angle with this, where it's black people on a plantation, and the executives aren't carrying whips anymore. They're just holding access to life and self-sustenance over our heads. This is the era where the creative, where the value producer has to truly decide if they are the holder of their value and where they want to take that value that they're holding on to. And in this case, that is our black brothers, that is our black, and even black women too, and black successful people. Again, this is not me shitting on interracial relationships. This is me showing that, hey, you know what? I need you to ask if you love that person because you love them, or if you love them because you're running away from one of us. Because these people, as sadistic as I may sound expressing this publicly, this is how these people think culturally. They may not act in a way, they may not express themselves in this way, but if they're good enough to believe it, then this is the convenience that we'll fall back on. Now, because I don't have no visuals on here for you guys, I'm going to make, I'll make an actual YouTube video on this. Maybe I'll make this. Let's take a picture of this right now. I'm going to make this the thumbnail, this graphic that I've designed of my lack of belief in preferences. Because I don't think they're real. I actually just think all you guys are racist. And, you know, if you guys just accepted that, that would actually be way better for us than you guys thinking, well, you know, I'm just a black man and I don't like black women because they just stupid ass stereotype I just learned from the internet. Insert here. Like, shit is so corny. And the crazy thing is, like, you never sit there and think, like, all the things that I'm describing about the black woman that I hate, like, I portray those things. I express those things. You've never hated a black woman for being a black woman. You've hated a black woman for not being what you've expected a black woman to be, which is a white woman, which she'll never be, which will forever disappoint you because those are expectations you've set them up with to fail. Okay? Humble yourself, brethren, and understand that black women will only ever be the fullness of what a black woman can be. And that takes for us as a people, a world people, to give them the ability, the environment, the opportunity to explore that and to express that and to be validated in that process. That's something I think we as a world have a long way to go. But if we continue to have voices who genuinely believe in that, to share that, especially people with platforms, to share that sentiment. And then in our culture, our creative culture, we express that. In our social culture, in our legislative, political culture, we express that and reinforce that. That love and care from a place of acceptance and integration. And I'm telling you, bro, a lot of things change. Where a lot of you guys are going to realize that you're just like, you're still stuck. Like I was saying earlier in this podcast, you're still stuck on the trauma that your mother may have put you through, or that one black woman you were in a relationship put you through, or you just hate the way that you see black women expressed or portrayed on the TV screen. But instead of saying, maybe that's white executives marketing them in a way that's dehumanizing as fuck, you say, nah, that's just black women wanting to be horrible and wanting to express themselves in these nasty ways that destroy and discredit our community, so they need to get punished for doing so. Like, you guys who don't like black women, bro, and don't like the black community, like, you guys are fucking weirdos, bro. And I hope you guys really, 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 really understand that when we're walking into a world where the God you worship or you're waiting on to save you looks more like your slave master and looks more like the group of people that wanted to take over the world as a means or as a consequence of their racial superiority than you. Or the person that you were born from, which is the person or the type of person, reference the Eve gene, who created every human being on planet Earth, except the first two somehow, because a white dude created those two, but then a black woman created every single other person. So that's weird. Patriarchal psychosis, I hope to whatever God you believe in, because it doesn't matter what they look like. I hope to whatever God you believe in that you guys tag my name anytime you say that shit. Anytime you bring up patriarchal psychosis, please say Disani, no last name, or Dark Wizard Disani brought that up. And you know what? Just let me know. Let me have it. Because damn, like these people, I made a whole 15-hour lecture series about social politics and the whole psychological degradation of the Western world over the next 25 years. So basically a prophecy. And that thing barely is cracking 300 views. So not that I'm impatient, which I am impatient as fuck, but I really think that's a testament to show the world that if you aren't in the level of status or credibility to say certain things, the world will just not allow you to say them, even if what you're saying is right, until it's too late. And then people start begging you to look deeper into the future as if they cared when you were looking into the future at a time that could have protected them. I don't even know why I think I just needed to get that off my heart, guys. I apologize. I don't even know how that applied, but something in me tells me it does. And now we're going to move on before I start to get insecure. I think the best way I can conclude this video, and truly, let me see if this is a conclusion. Yeah, this is it. The best way that I can conclude this video is just giving my advice, which again, I'm a black man outwardly expressing advice to black women here. But again, the best advice you're ever going to get is going to come from black women, is going to come from black elders, is going to come from people who genuinely care about our community, which I am one of those people. I am in that identity, but I am not the end game. I am not the salvation for your conscious thought, especially in this community. I need you to remember every time that you appreciate the perspectives I give, the takes that I give. I want you to remember that it comes from me digging into all the voices and the faces that I'm inspired by. And I would be nothing without all of their influence, without all of their support, without all of their accommodation. And that's the type of community conscious perspective we have to be looking at this life from. So where you may appreciate the perspectives I give, I want you to remember that I can only be one of many voices in your life that you give significance to, that you give value to, because I want you to even be able to hold me accountable when I'm not sharing a truth that can be applied to your life, or I'm not sharing a truth that you as a collective believe is healthy for the collective consciousness that we're building here on this page and in this world. I'm not going to keep saying take my perspectives with a grain of salt anymore. That is a given at this point. What I'm trying to say is that dig into your discernment, dig into your awareness, dig into and give life to the people that show you or give you an opportunity to maximize on yours. And I'm telling you right now, my goal isn't to be the king of kings necessarily on top of the world, the all-knowing master of knowledge, but it is somebody who influences people who are on their journey and just need that insight to maybe reconfigure the path or just keep going a little bit longer to see it all the way through and to be on the other side of conquering that fear or conquering what they don't believe they can get over. And I know you're not going to need me in this life for long or for all of your life, but for what I am able to do for you in your life, I hope it is everything that I can. But again, as I'm going to say here, it's recognizing that I am only one of the many voices that you should be listening to. If I am one of them, I'm one of many voices to be developing your collective conscious awareness. To remember that it's not only one person that can create all the value, create all the sustenance for a community. We all have to be willing to, one, participate in the community, and two, humble ourselves enough to know that there are more people that need to be included for us to get to the solution that we want to get to. All right. Thank you for allowing me to share that. But this is the advice that I do have for the black women that find themselves to be in my community. I understand that it may feel as if the whole world is saying, oh, how come there's no black men with black women or successful black men with black women? And then it's almost like the world is turning directly to you as if you're supposed to have the answer for this, which I think is a horrible situation to be put in. But I believe that this time in human history is so different because we've already seen the other side of white women taking advantage of that vulnerability that black women have had and say, you know what? Are you tired of being disrespected or abandoned by black men? You should punish them. Because we understand how white liberal, white women social justice works. But I believe this is an opportunity for black women to build community completely independent of the acceptance of or the validation of patriarchy. Being able to do that allows black women to create a grounded reality apart from the psychosis that is patriarchy, allowing those women to access parts of themselves energetically in ways that patriarchy doesn't even allow patriarchal women to have the awareness to access. Leaving patriarchal women at the mercy of overwhelming emotions, whether it's anxiety or overthinking or depression, because they aren't given the autonomy to develop a relationship with their own energies and their own emotions. And on top of that, given the authority to actualize that magic into reality and influence it in a way that they can benefit from directly rather than just be exploited from and then have all of the wealth or abundance created from their power stolen from them by their master, which is their husband, or their master, which is their whoever leads their society. But I've already seen, I've already seen, all it takes is a couple of days. I've already seen the initiative that black women have gone onto as TikTok's being shut down. These ladies, there's a handful of black women, and I'll make sure I can connect with every single one of these ladies. But there's a handful of black women and men too in this community that have created an unofficial HBCU school for black consciousness and intellectual concepts. And these people are having live sessions and actual programs off their accounts on their TikToks. Are you kidding? Who was even thinking of that? And if you want to check them out, it's called Hillman Talk. I'm 100% sure it's called Hillman Talk. But who is even thinking of doing something like that? Now imagine if we did have a community of black people who saw that and said, you know what? That's not even near how big that could go. That's not even near how crazy we could scale that, especially with how necessary it is in a world where we just destroyed the Department of Education and we have Elon Musk, a foreigner, absolutely obliterating essential welfare institutions in our government, protecting black people and the black community in the slightest bit from the powers that have consumed American government. You're sitting here and finding every reason to hate black women, to think that black women are less than, or they're masculine, or they're animals. And you're not. All of that hatred is stopping you from being able to appreciate when things go wrong. Black women don't complain. They act, especially in community. And that's one thing that patriarchy, especially a white supremacist patriarchy, cannot have women do. Be in community to create answers and actualize those answers beyond the indoctrination that is forced downward in some Reaganomics level spiral down to the people that are dependent on the master for their salvation, whether it's their children, it's the wife, it's the employees. You have to sit here and I don't care what kind of trauma you've been through at the hands of black women. You have to sit here and appreciate that and see that, to be that forward thinking, because I'm telling you right now, that's not a scenario or a situation that lasts on TikTok. That's something that we have to move that type of shit to FANBASE, because FANBASE is a black owned CEO. or it's a black-owned business, one, a black tech CEO who understands the importance of owning communication hotlines and media communications, and it's a almost fully fledged online school community in an industry, the online education industry, which is going to grow to multiple hundreds of billions in the next 10 to 25 years. That's something that we could use for our people. Oh, and how about education leads to employment? That's something that we could use for our people. Oh, and how about educating ourselves together in concepts that actually develop us or force us to develop a self-concept that is beyond the validation of our master, but is through the acceptance of ourselves and our own unique, amazing nature? Maybe that allows us to develop better culture and better community because we aren't sacrificing each other for somebody else who already hates all of us to accept one of us. Maybe that shows us that we were born to do this together. We're supposed to do this together. And that's how we grow doing this together. It's just, I need you guys, like when you're listening to these videos, I need you guys to see how if we don't get over step 1, 2, and 3, you will never be able to receive us and my community being at step 97, trying to figure out why people are still so far fucking behind. But then it's different because if I didn't accept myself to have these perspectives, or at least believe in myself enough to have these perspectives, I would accept what has been projected onto me as if I'm the crazy irrational one, rather than you guys are the crazy ones for one, not having these conversations, and two, being able to live in a world where we don't address this and then we're confused as to why we're still suffering every single fucking day. But I've had this perspective for a handful of weeks, probably for the greater part of the past year. And I'm fairly sure I made a YouTube video on it, and it's in my No Land for Good Man lecture series. If you're still listening to this, go ahead and check that out, please, for a starving artist. And since you heard starving artist, you go ahead and throw me some money. Not playing. But a perspective that I have for the future of feminism is that Black women will lead this next generation. If not, marginalized women will come together in this super cool, like diverse, organized, conscious collective to be able to either mass migrate away, like out of America. But I don't think that could happen because I think there's going to be some type of destruction to international travel going in and out of America as a means of isolating this country. So I think there's going to be a mass migration of women and people who are willing to reject patriarchal psychosis at the mercy of the life that they have created underneath it, to move into like literal states. And there will be able to be community created that sponsors or at least believes in the divinity of the feminine. But I mean, I'm telling you, it could be like, and this is something that doesn't just happen overnight. This is something that starts with underground communities. This is something that happens with like, you're showing up to like, and more, of course, women specifically, but more than women, people showing up to classrooms and giving lectures, people showing up on their weekends to go to lectures and to go to informational meetings, people showing up to go to city hall meetings, people showing up to go to parent teacher conferences. People have to show up. It can't just be no bullshit, no black square on the internet. It can't just be no hashtag this on the internet. Like, people have to show up, bro, and really be able to not only show up and receive that new information, that new consciousness, but apply that into their lives and be a spokesperson of that change into their lives to other people. And being able to do this, like this kind of underground movement, mass migration, this alone has the potential to ridiculously, I'm talking exponentially, increase the levels of consciousness and intellectualism that already exist within the Black community, specifically being upheld by Black women. And upheld, I mean upheld like the bar is being held by Black women. So in a world where DEI initiatives and equal opportunity is being actively destroyed to coddle the white people who are disappointed that they don't have access to every opportunity at the mercy of everybody's well-being, instead of just abandoning the greatness that black women have already scratched the surface of, why don't we just fully go in on it? Why don't we take the few dollars we have? Why don't we take the people that we have? Why don't we take the resources and the network and the connections we have and go all in on what this society was not willing to care about or appreciate? Why don't we take the risk on ourselves, black people? For our daughters, for our sisters, for our mothers, for our aunties, for our grandmothers, for those of us who aren't even blood related to us, for the women that we desire to be in a relationship with, and for those who broke our hearts. Why can't we create that opportunity for them and just see what happens when given opportunity to people who haven't even been given an opportunity to do anything but kind of actualize themselves, and they took that and ran so far with it that now they lead the entire nation's demographic as to being the leading one for intellectualism and intellect. So that's also going to lead me to another podcast that I have coming for you guys. I love saying that. But I got another podcast talking about the DEI initiatives and whatnot, and just saying how this is the stupidest thing America could ever do. Because now, instead of finding more reasons to FOMO marginalize people into or in American culture while also kind of holding them outside of it, you're basically just telling us, hey, you're not talented and you should leave. But don't leave, like you're just not talented. But the second you realize that you are talented, and you're probably more talented than a lot of those executives and a lot of those Nepo babies that have those opportunities that you should be deserving of, you're just going to start your own business. You're just going to join a small startup that actually cares about your benefits and your human rights. You're just going to join a community that actually gives you an opportunity to do what you love to do and to stay there all day and to actualize your truth in it. And now people are going to see how much life genuinely exists outside of selling your soul for corporate validation. And I'm telling you, corporate America has been abandoning so many talented, gifted, inspirational, influential souls, leaving them on the back burner, telling them they're not qualified, telling them they're not good enough. And now that whole big tech broligarchy is going to have to pay the piper. Because their competition doesn't look like them. Their competition doesn't even look like aliens. Their competition doesn't even look like men. Their competition looks like the non-human beings that they identified over the past however many years they've had power. The black people, the marginalized people, the women, the disabled people, the queer people. Those are the people that are going to lead the new world. And that is the retaliation they never expected. They never expected those of us who were deemed non-human to pick ourselves up by our own 2 feet and create a whole new world from literally the ashes of this world that they are actively blowing up in front of our face. They don't have that. Now, it may be kind of weird me saying this from the perspective that I am a black man who desires not only the love of black women, but to be in connection, community, relationship with black women as a whole. So why am I saying black women? My prophecy is you guys are either going to leave and be independent completely, or you guys are just going to build your own shit underground, and just not worry about who is accepting you or not validating you or whatever it is. You're just going to say, fuck it. We're doing what we're doing, and you guys can get on this train, or you guys can go live at the mercy of these tech bros. The reason why I'm saying that, at the mercy of maybe even me being able to be in a relationship with black women, depending on how that is received, is because I understand the next phase of woman cannot be accessed through the validation of a man. So one, just like on a spiritual, energetic level, this next era is going to be woman from the perspective of woman, not women from the perspective or the expectation of man. And two, it's becoming, I've been doing a handful of studying on love because I'm coming out with this dating relationship community building app kind of. I don't know what to call it specifically, but it's got a handful to do with relationships and a handful to do with community. One thing I'm realizing in my research on those topics is that you cannot motivate a man to love you who isn't inspired to love you based on his own accord. I hope I said that properly. And I'll say it again just so you don't have to like double back, skip on this. You cannot motivate a man to love you who isn't inspired to do so on his own accord. I'm not saying you got to be Shakira. I'm not saying you got to be Beyonce. I'm not saying you got to be, Crazy Town, Rihanna. What I am saying is that you will suffer so much more attempting to get a man, to convince a man, and this goes for any gender, convincing anybody. You will spend so much more time suffering trying to get somebody else to like you who doesn't choose to like you because you're setting them up with an expectation that they are inevitably going to fail, but they're not going to fail because they don't like you. They're going to fail because you're setting them up to be somebody that they are not. You have to see that, yeah, maybe he loves that white woman differently than he loves that black woman because of how he was raised, because of the trauma that he's been through, because of what he's been told, because of the peer pressure of his peers and the people that he values and cherishes. Maybe this is all going into this, but we don't always have to assume that it is that. Maybe the black dude just loves that white woman because they've been friends forever. They grew up together. They hang around each other. They have the same interests. They're both quirky types of people. You have to accept, hey, you know what? Maybe that is just love. And a little bit of this animosity that I have towards that is the fact that they can experience that love, but there's somehow these expectations or blockages or limitations to me accessing that love with a black man that I have the potential to love deeply and genuinely. And the more we can attribute that to just white supremacist culture and the unsafe nature that black women are usually predisposed into in this culture, then you can take a lot of that responsibility off of your own plate and attribute it to society that should be giving you a chance to be the fullness of who you are and also be appreciated for that, rather than punished from the second you wake up and then hoping that somebody will accept you on the other end of all the rejection that you receive every day. And mind you, I also want you, especially as black women, to understand that underneath patriarchal psychosis, most men don't even care about the validation of the women that they're chasing. They only engage with women for the validation of other men. I'm not sure if it's homosexual, but you are just triangulated in this relationship for this man to be accepted by another man so he can feel like a man, especially fatherless boys, especially black men who grow up in PWIs, predominantly white institutions or environments, suburbs. A lot of your masculinity is tied into the woman that you have underneath your arm. And a lot of guys are willing to sacrifice the opportunity they have to contribute in building a black community for the acceptance into a community of people that never liked or appreciated us. So they're willing to go about the racist jokes. They're willing to get left out. They're willing to be the butt of the joke all the time. Because what it affords them on the other side of being accepted or being validated is more valuable than what they would have to endure. And remember, in their eyes, not because it is more valuable or easier than what they would have to endure actually pursuing a relationship with a black woman. Because black love forces you to stand against the test of literally everything in America. Because everything is trying to break you apart to reinforce the stereotype that black people hate each other and we are nothing without the salvation of the white man. And even better, when you realize that, hey, you know what? maybe this illusion of salvation through marriage is sold to women so young, so early, so much all the time as a means of getting us to abandon pursuing, fulfilling our dreams, to immediately become the slave of, and maybe not the slave, to immediately submit ourselves to servitude to a family and a husband. Immediately. Didn't even get to experience the world, didn't even get to have sex, didn't even get to drink, didn't even get to smoke a joint. You didn't even get to smoke a joint with the Dark Wizard Disney, and you're already getting married and having kids. Like, what are you doing, bruh? That is like the ninth wonder of the world. Smoking a joint with Dark Wizard Disney and having a conversation with me in real time. I'm telling you right now. And you haven't even given yourself an opportunity to do that. But you think that you're ready to have a kid and get married. Like, come on now. This is just me being big bro, for real. This is just me being big bro. But I think that hopefully we got to this point in this pod while we're recording. But the conclusion that I'd like to leave you guys with is, especially for my sisters, not only do I feel we have been over-sexualized as a society, but we have also been we've had our loneliness, or the awareness of our loneliness, exacerbated to the gills by social media and by these tech bros and tech companies, which is truly destroying our ability to build ourselves as an authentic community, and beyond that, a lasting culture that we can thrive off of. So I don't want us taking this as an opportunity, one, to hate white people. They have a lot of stuff they got to take accountability for. We don't got to worry about that shit. So let's just sacrifice that, the overwhelm that comes with needing to be accepted and seen and known by them. Put that to the side for a second. And let's truly start to focus from relationships, or about our relationships, from the perspective of a person needs to have a relationship with themselves as a means of setting the foundation for a healthy relationship with a partner beyond themselves. And the consequences of a partnership with somebody else could mean you're creating your own community of people connected to you by blood and responsibility. So we're not just thinking of, I am lonely, let me soothe my loneliness, or let me soothe my lack of validation or appreciation with a relationship, because that is very internal. It is, I see the world externally, everybody has love. I look within, there is no love, or I am not seeing love. So I need to go out into the world and grab somebody to love me, to help me forget about this lack of love that I'm feeling. Not knowing that if I'm the one who needs to be loved and I'm going to go get it, where's the love that I'm going to go give this other person? Do I even have any presence to be for this person? Or am I just trying to get some energy to make me feel different? We got to look at, again, relationship from I am developing a relationship with myself to even see what I love. Because think about this. If I can develop the discernment to see who I am and who I am not, that gives me the best opportunity to see through the people who are selling me dreams and lies and love bombing me, and only putting me in a position so they can access me in ways that I may not even be consenting to, if in the right position, to be completely aware of what's going on. I'm just like, as much as I want to blame politics or society or the media or big tech and all this type of shit, I believe that we as a black people, especially in this world that we're walking into, where, I mean, shit, they these people took out DEI and Black History Month within like 7 days. So if we know we're already living in Jim Crow America, we need to be able to have these conversations from a place of like, where are we going beyond this? Like, are we just trying to have the viral hot take that gets 1 million views and then throwing that on TikTok and, oh, well, I'm not dating Brokey unless he makes $10,000 a day, or I'm not dating that gold digger chick. She wants to go to Nobu on the first date. Like, How do we have conversations beyond the sensationalist ones? How do we have conversations that actually involve the community that we're going to be forced to live in and create a culture out of on the other side of giving these so-called hot takes? And mind you, I used to really, really not believe in myself. Actually, let me give you a little story time right now. I used to have such a hard time believing in myself because coming from narcissistic parents, and mind you, like, my dad he said he had a handful of degrees, but I think he was lying about that. Or actually, no, I saw one. But, like, he wasn't smart at all. And his means of getting off, like, his power was basically just by degrading the shit out of everybody around him. But because he had no friends and, like, no community, and I'm pretty sure he didn't even work a job, to be honest, for real. Like, the only people he could take that out on was his kids and his wife. And mind you, we'll get into my mom's issues in a whole other episode. But, yeah, it was very difficult for me to really appreciate my own intellect and my ability to develop concepts and to communicate them and express myself. Because I was just so built up to just hate myself for everything that I was. Like, to hate myself and my own intellect from people who couldn't even be on a level to have these kind of conversations with me. And that affected me internally and stopped me from being able to do the things that connected me with so many other cool people in this freaking world, bro, that remind me that this is exactly what I came to this earth to do. And I just sit here and think about that shit every single day. Like, my own parents sat here almost like handlers, bro, stopping me from having access to my gift. Or at least stopping me from having the solace and the peace and the foundation from accessing this and believing in it enough in a world that already doesn't want you to believe in yourself if you're a black person outside of the traditional stereotype that destroys your culture. And this shit just makes me so sad, bro. Like it I think it affects my consistency a little bit because a lot of the times I'll just get so confident and I'll be like, yeah, you know, like, this is a good video, this is a good pod, this is good stuff. And then just out of nowhere, I'll be like, who the fuck do you think you are, bro? Like, look at you, freaking black sheep. Like, your own family doesn't even like you, bro. You don't have anything that your peers have. You don't have the same healthy relationships. You don't have any financial backing. You don't have any collective belief or like a referral or like a testimonial that could support you. Like, it's just you being a fucking delusional, crazy person and just dreaming this whole shit on your own and hoping it works. But I would not trade this shit for the world. I'm telling you right now. I don't care what the fuck happens on this journey, bro. I tell you right now, bro, as somebody who has literally lost everything except my own awareness and my own ability to wake up and pick my 2 feet up and walk them every single day. I'm telling you right now, I'd never trade this shit for the world. And if you're somebody who's really, really struggling to find that fulfillment or really struggling to find that passion in your life, find out what your biggest fucking dream is and actualize that. As long as it takes, whatever it takes, however it takes, make that the focal point of your life and allow your relationships to be at the mercy of helping you achieve those dreams. Allow the job you work and the networking you do and the engagements you have to help support you in doing all those things and to becoming the fullness of who you are every step of the way on that journey. And continue to appreciate the people that support you even when the rest of the world doesn't want to or the world isn't ready to yet. Because I'm telling you right now, that shit is real, real, real fucking hard to come by. So don't tarnish that shit when you get it. Now, really, I'm not sure what I was meant to say with any of this clip other than me just kind of complaining about being a black sheep and struggling to make videos and to step into my role, like, I guess, imposter syndrome. But if you're somebody who's struggling with that shit, I hope you know that imposter syndrome is a choice. And it's you basically having a conversation with your inner critic, deciding whether or not it's right or you're going to be right. And the only person that can tell who's right is your life experiences at the end of the day. So let this be a testament to, even if you don't like yourself or even if you don't believe that you're worthy of accessing the life you want to live or doing the things that you need to do to access the life you want to live, Why don't you put those thoughts to rest long enough until you can truly see how your life wants to respond to your dreams? Because I'm telling you, your inner critic doesn't know anything about this world. Your inner critic exists as a consequence of trauma and rejection. It doesn't exist on the other side of success, bro. Your inner critic is afraid of success because the second you start to win, the second you start to build yourself up, the second you start to elevate, that's when you don't have to give that shit credibility anymore. You don't have to validate it anymore because you and your real world are on the other side of all the actions that you're doing because of your belief in yourself and your mission, rather than you living in a reality that's at the consequence of you not believing in yourself, which probably leads you to not do what you're supposed to do, which would change your circumstance and push you in a place you want to be in. So for all my black sheep, for all my dream chasers, for all my curse breakers, bro, this shit got nothing to do about where you came from, bro. This shit has everything to do about where you're going and what it's turning you into. Always stay aware of that. Always stay cognizant of how great you are, bro, and everything that you could do in this life, bro. Don't ever forget it. And now we're on the conclusion of this episode. If you fuck with this episode, check us out on CosmicNomadsRebelSouls.shop. Always good gear there. Check it out. And if you don't, fuck you. But if you do, check us out on Patreon, Cosmic Nomads Rebel Souls. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. If it's not that, it's Rebel Souls Collective. But if I'm saying it all wrong, then you could check out our description and you will be A-O-freaking-K to contribute to this independent media source. And if you stayed this long and you don't have the means to do any of those things, I just want you to know how appreciative I am of you having an actual attention span in a world where that shit is fried. You are a super trooper, and you're probably one of God's strongest soldiers, because I definitely know I'm not. Hope you guys enjoy yourselves for the rest of this week, or however long it takes for me to post another piece of long-form content and yap myself to sleep. I'm thankful for you, and I hope that all these conversations we have are doing something positive to your ability to not only dig into ideas and concepts that may be taboo or controversial, but be a part of a collective consciousness that's actually moving towards changing the world that we live in, out of consciousness, with clarity. I don't know another cool C word that could bang there, but you go ahead and find it for me. Stay down and stay believing in yourself, OG. I know I keep on dragging this, but for real. I know there's a lot of shit going on in the world right now. Just stay down, stay believing. Stay hopeful, stay faithful. I'm telling you, the hope of the people might be the only thing that gets us through the next 25 years. And if that's something that you have access to, I hope you never give that shit up for anything. Till I see you next time, Rockstar. Rock on.